In a new interview, A Song of Ice and Fire author George R.R. Martin gave a heartbreaking update regarding the release of his long-awaited epic fantasy saga. Unfortunately, it looks like he's finally beginning to accept the fact that he may never finish writing all of A Song of Ice and Fire, and as far as I know, he's never admitted this before. Now, if you go back and look at all of his updates, he's always believed he would finish his A Song of Ice and Fire series. As most of you already know, he no longer gives himself deadlines because he knows he has failed to deliver on each of those dates. In fact, it has been 4 years since he said we could lock him in a cell if he didn't deliver Winds of Winter by the end of that year. And it has already been over 13 years since he released his last novel in his A Song of Ice and Fire saga, A Dance with Dragons. Now that he's 76 years old and we've yet to see the release of the Winds of Winter, most fans have already accepted the fact that we may never see the next and final novel, A Dream of Spring. While sitting down for an interview at The Hollywood Reporter, they asked him about his long-awaited novel. Author George R.R. Martin said, "Unfortunately, I'm 13 years late. Whenever I say that, I'm like, how could I be 13 years late? I really don't know. It happens one day at a time." He went on to say, "But that's still a focus of mine. A lot of fans have already started writing obituaries for me. They're saying, oh, he'll never finish, and maybe they're right. I don't know. I'm alive right now, and I seem vital." He also added that he could never retire from writing. He said he's not a golfer. So as you can see, he no longer guarantees he will finish A Song of Ice and Fire. Now he thinks the fans might be right when they say he'll never get it done. Unfortunately, he doesn't know if he'll ever finish A Dream of Spring. As you all know, there's already a lot of fans who believe he'll never release Winds of Winter, the same novel he's been writing for over a damn decade. He's obviously not very satisfied with how much he has already written, otherwise he would feel a lot more confident in his ability to finish his epic fantasy saga. He already knows the finish line is nowhere in sight. As I've said in other videos, I've always believed he will need more than 7 novels to finish his saga. It's no secret, George R.R. Martin is famously meticulous in his writing, often described as a gardener rather than an architect. Instead of writing from a rigid outline, he lets his stories grow organically, allowing the characters and plot lines to develop naturally. Unfortunately, this has led to significant challenges as A Song of Ice and Fire grows more complex. In many other interviews and updates, he's admitted that he frequently rewrites chapters and finds it very difficult to untangle the many narrative threads he has woven. This inevitably slows down his writing. The massive scale of A Song of Ice and Fire is another major factor contributing to his delays. As you all know, the series is set across different continents involving hundreds of characters, and it incorporates intricate political and social dynamics. And as the narrative has grown, maintaining continuity and resolving the numerous storylines has become an increasingly difficult task. He's already admitted that the series has grown larger than he initially anticipated, with the addition of new characters in A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons. Resolving all these threads in a satisfying way, while setting up the final novel, A Dream of Spring, adds a layer of complexity that few authors have faced. He's likely already very worried about delivering an ending that will satisfy his readers while living up to the high standards set by his earlier installments. Not to mention, the shadow of the show's divisive ending may also weigh heavily on George, as he aims to deliver a resolution that restores the narrative from the original medium. And as the years go by, our expectations become even larger. We're all hoping it will erase the memory of Game of Thrones' final season, although his ending might be very similar. I've always had this feeling that the reason why we still haven't seen The Winds of Winter is because he decided to make his ending different after he saw how the fans reacted to the show's final season. I have that feeling because of what he said on his Not-A-Blog website about 2 years ago. He said, "Another question that I get a lot, especially since the end of Game of Thrones on HBO, is whether A Song of Ice and Fire will end the same way. An architect would be able to give a short, concise, simple answer to that, but I'm much more of a gardener. My stories grow and evolve and change as I write them. I generally know where I'm going, sure. The final destinations, the big set pieces, they've been in my head for years. For decades, in fact, in the case of A Song of Ice and Fire. There's lots of devils in the details though, and sometimes the ground changes under my feet as I write. I will say this, I've been at work in my winter garden. Things are growing and changing, as does happen with us gardeners. New ideas come to me, and old ones become unworkable. I write, rewrite, I restructure, I rip everything out, and I rewrite again. I go through doors that lead nowhere, and doors that open on marvels. It sounds mad, I know, but it's how I write. Always has been, and always will be, for good or for ill." What I have noticed more and more of late, however, is my gardening is taking me further and further away from the television series. I mean, yes, some of the things you saw on HBO and Game of Thrones you will also see in The Winds of Winter, though maybe not in quite the same way. However, much of the rest will be very different, and really when you think about it, this was inevitable. The novels are much bigger and much more complex than the show. Certain things that happened on HBO will not happen in the novels, and vice versa. I have characters in the books who are never seen on the show. There's Victarion Greyjoy, Arianne Martell, Arya Hota, Jon Connington, Aeron Damphair. They all have chapters, and the things they do and say will affect the story. And, well, the list is long. It's one of the many reasons why I'm still writing Winds of Winter. One thing I can say, in general enough terms that I'll not be spoiling anything, not all the characters who survived until the end of Game of Thrones will survive until the end of A Song of Ice and Fire. And not all the characters who died on Game of Thrones will die in A Song of Ice and Fire. Some will, sure, of course, maybe most, but definitely not all. Now, of course, I could change my mind again next week with the next chapter I write. That's gardening. And the ending? You'll need to wait until I get there. Some things will be the same, but a lot will not. No doubt once I'm done, there will be a big debate about which version of the story is better. There will be some fans who like my book, and others will like the show. And that's fine, although I do fear that a certain amount of fans are so angry about how long Winds has taken me that they're ready to hate the book unread. That saddens me, but there's nothing I can do about it but write the best book that I can, and hope that when it comes out, most fans will read it with an open mind. Now, as you can see, those were one of those updates that had me very excited. That sounded like we would get a very different ending from Game of Thrones, and I still think we will, when and if he ever releases the damn novel. I'm just not sure if we'll ever see the full ending of A Song of Ice and Fire, and I can't help but feel that way after the author recently said he no longer knows if he'll ever be able to finish his own saga. That doesn't sound like a man who is hopeful about getting it done. Let me know what all of you think about this recent interview down below. I love to hear what you have to say. It'll be nice to read something that will help me back away from the ledge. Once again, I want to thank all of you for watching another video. I hope all of you have a great day. I will see you again very soon. Bye.